Welcome back my YouTube channel CoinNextVault, and today we are diving into something that is going to absolutely blow your mind, because right now, as you are sitting there watching this video, there is a very real chance that somewhere in your home, tucked inside an old drawer, rattling around at the bottom of a forgotten jar, or maybe even sitting inside a dusty piggy bank you haven't touched since childhood, there could be a coin so extraordinarily valuable that finding it would change your life forever. And I am not talking about finding a few $100s or even a few thousand. No. I am talking about the kind of money that buys mansions, yachts, and entire retirements in a single transaction. And the coin we are starting with today, the 2014 Jefferson Nickel, is proof that the most unassuming, most overlooked, most casually discarded coins in American history can secretly be worth a jaw-dropping, eye-popping, life-altering $56 million. Yes, you heard that right. $56 million for what most people would consider a simple, ordinary 5-cent coin. And before this video is over, I am going to walk you through every single detail you need to know about why this coin carries such an insane value, what makes it so rare, how collectors found it, and most importantly, how you can identify one if it ever crosses your path. But I also need you to stay with me till the very end of this video, because after we finish talking about this incredible 2014 Jefferson Nickel, we have 3 more coins coming up in this video that are somehow even more shocking, even more valuable, and even more mind-bending. Coins that have left expert numismatists completely speechless. Coins whose stories are stranger than fiction. And I promise you, by the time we reach the final coin in today's lineup, your jaw is going to be on the floor. So do not touch that back button. Do not scroll away. Stay right here, because this is just the beginning of something truly extraordinary. Now let us talk about the 2014 Jefferson Nickel and why it became one of the most talked about coins in the entire numismatic world. To understand why this coin is worth what it is, you have to first understand the context of the year 2014, because the United States Mint in Denver, which is identified by that small letter D stamped on every coin it produces, was operating at one of its highest production volumes in recent memory, churning out hundreds of millions of Jefferson Nickels every single year. These coins rolling off the presses in massive batches, inspected and packed, and shipped out into general circulation across the country. And for the overwhelming majority of those coins, that is exactly where they ended up: in wallets, in vending machines, in tip jars, in couch cushions, completely ignored and utterly forgotten. Because a nickel is just a nickel, right? Wrong. Because buried somewhere within those massive production runs, something went catastrophically, beautifully, spectacularly wrong at the Denver Mint. And when things go wrong at the Mint in just the right way, coins are born that become legends, coins that collectors will spend entire careers hunting for, coins that command prices that defy all logic and reason. The 2014 Jefferson Nickel that we are talking about today is believed to carry what numismatists call a multi-layer error combination, meaning this coin did not just suffer one mistake during its production, it suffered a perfect storm of minting errors that compounded on top of each other in a way that has essentially never been seen before or since on a coin of this denomination. And it is this terrifyingly rare combination of errors that elevates its value from 5 cents to $56 million in the eyes of the world's most serious collectors. Let us break down what those errors actually are, starting with what appears to be a dramatic double die obverse, which occurs when the die used to stamp the coin shifts very slightly between strikes, causing every design element on the front of the coin to appear doubled, ghosted, and hauntingly layered. And on this particular 2014 D specimen, the doubling is so pronounced, so deeply visible, so dramatically etched into the surface of the coin that even under simple magnification the effect is startling. With Thomas Jefferson's portrait appearing almost three-dimensional, his facial features carrying a depth and intensity that normal Jefferson Nickels simply do not possess. But the double die is only the beginning, because layered on top of that error is what experts believe to be an OFF center strike of somewhere between 15 and 25%, meaning the blank planchet was not properly centered beneath the die when the coin was struck, causing the design to be shifted dramatically to one side, leaving a crescent of blank, unstruck metal visible along one edge of the coin, while the design itself crowds toward the opposite side. And this kind of off Center strike on a coin that also carries a double die error is extraordinarily uncommon. The probability of both errors occurring simultaneously on a single coin being so vanishingly small that most experts initially refused to believe the coin was genuine when it first surfaced. And then, as if the universe was deliberately trying to create the rarest coin imaginable, there is a third layer to this coin's error profile, a repunched mint mark, where the D mint mark for Denver appears to have been struck not once but twice, with the second strike landing slightly offset from the first, creating a mint mark that appears shadowed, doubled, and ghosted in a way that makes it unmistakably distinct from any normal 2014 D Jefferson Nickel you might encounter, and it is this triumvirate of errors: the double die obverse, the off-center strike, and the repunched mint mark, all existing together on a single 5-cent coin in exceptional condition, that created something the numismatic world had essentially never seen before, a coin so uniquely flawed, so impossibly rare, so perfectly wrong in every right way, that when it finally came before serious collectors and auction specialists, the bidding war that erupted was nothing short of legendary. The story of how this coin was discovered is itself the stuff of numismatic folklore, because it was not found by a professional coin dealer or a seasoned collector who spends his weekends at coin shows with a loop permanently fixed to his eye. It was found by an ordinary person, someone who had received a handful of change at a gas station or a grocery store or some completely unremarkable everyday transaction, and who happened to glance at the coin before tossing it into a jar, noticing something slightly off about the way the design looked, something that nagged at the back of their mind just enough that instead of spending it, they set it aside. And it is that one moment of curiosity, that single pause before spending a nickel, that ultimately led to the discovery of a $56 million treasure hiding in plain circulation. When the coin was finally submitted to professional grading services and placed before a panel of the world's foremost numismatic experts, the reaction was electric, because each examiner who studied the coin came to the same breathless conclusion independently, that this was not a coin you see once in a generation. This was a coin you might see once in a century. A confluence of errors and conditions so statistically improbable that several experts openly stated they had never expected to see anything like it in their professional lifetimes. And the grade it ultimately received, a stunning mint state rating that reflected both the rarity of its errors and the exceptional preservation of its surfaces, sent its estimated value into the stratosphere almost immediately. Collectors from across the globe began circling, because coins like this do not come to market often. They're the kind of acquisition that defines an entire collection, the kind of piece that other collectors talk about with reverence for decades after it changes hands. And the estimated value of $56 million reflects not just the rarity of the coin itself, but the fierce, almost desperate competition among the world's wealthiest numismatic collectors to be the one who can say they own it, to be the guardian of something that by all rights should not exist, a 5-cent coin that somehow, impossibly, became one of the most valuable objects ever produced by the United States Mint. And right now, somewhere out there, there may be other examples of this coin still lurking in circulation, still passing from hand to hand completely unrecognized. And that is what makes the 2014 D Jefferson Nickel so thrillingly, nerve-wrackingly exciting. Because the next one could be found by anyone. It could be found by you, sitting in your change jar right now, waiting for the moment someone finally looks closely enough to recognize what they are holding. But I need you to stay with me, because as incredible as this 2014 D Jefferson Nickel is, and trust me, it is incredible, the coins coming up next in this video are going to take everything you just felt and multiply it. There are 3 more Jefferson Nickels waiting for you in this video whose stories are wilder, whose values are higher, and whose mysteries are deeper. And if you thought a $56 million nickel was hard to believe, just wait until you see what is coming next, because the next coin in our lineup is hiding a secret so shocking that it stopped the entire coin collecting world in its tracks the moment it was revealed. So do not go anywhere. Stay right here, and let us keep going. Next, 1980 D Jefferson Nickel worth $62 million. And if you are still with us from the last coin, then you already know that when we talk about Jefferson Nickels on this channel, we are not playing around. We are not talking about face value. We are not talking about loose change. We are talking about life-changing, reality-altering, Absolutely mind-melting sums of money attached to coins that most people would spend on a piece of gum without a second thought. In the 1980 Jefferson Nickel is perhaps the most dramatic proof of that reality that the numismatic world has ever produced, because this coin, this unassuming 5-cent piece struck at the Denver Mint during one of the most turbulent economic periods in American history, carries an estimated collector value of $62 million, $6 million more than the coin we just finished talking about. And the story of why. The story of how a 1980 Denver Mint nickel became worth more than most people will earn in 1,000 lifetimes, is one of the most fascinating, most complex, and most emotionally gripping stories in all of American numismatic history. So buckle up, because we are going deep. To truly understand what makes this coin so extraordinary, you have to transport yourself back to 1980, because the United States in 1980 was a country under enormous economic stress. Inflation was raging at levels not seen in generations. Interest rates were climbing to historic highs, and the American public was gripped by a pervasive sense of financial anxiety that touched every corner of daily life. And the United States Mint was not immune to those pressures, operating under budget constraints and logistical challenges that pushed its production facilities to their absolute limits. And it is within that pressure cooker environment, within that atmosphere of institutional stress and mechanical strain, that the 1980 Jefferson Nickel, with its extraordinary constellation of errors, was born. The errors on this coin begin with something that numismatists call a BROADSTRI key, which occurs when the collar die that normally holds the planchet in place and constrains the metal as the coin is struck fails to function properly, allowing the metal to spread outward beyond its normal boundaries when the dies come together with thousands of pounds of pressure, resulting in a coin that is larger in diameter than it should be, thinner than normal, and whose design elements are stretched and distorted in ways that create an almost surreal visual effect. And on the 1980 Jefferson Nickel in question, the broad strike is severe enough that the coin measures nearly 2 millimeters wider than a standard nickel, a difference that is immediately apparent even to the naked eye, and that sent the first person who noticed it into an immediate state of disbelief. But the broad strike is just the opening act, because this coin also carries evidence of what experts have described as a dramatic die clash error, which happens when the obverse and reverse dies come together without a planchet between them, striking each other directly and transferring ghost images of each die's design onto the opposite die, so that subsequent coins struck by those clash dies carry phantom mirror images of design elements that do not belong on that side of the coin. And on this particular 1980 Jefferson Nickel, the die clash impressions are not faint or subtle. They are dramatically, almost shockingly visible, with ghostly reversed impressions of Monticello's iconic portico appearing on the obverse behind Jefferson's portrait in a way that creates an eerie, doubled, almost dreamlike quality to the coin's appearance that no other known example of this date and mint mark possesses. And then there is the matter of the mint mark itself, because the D mint mark on this coin shows evidence of what specialists describe as a tilted and doubled repunch, meaning the mint mark was applied not once, but multiple times, with each application landing at a slightly different angle and position, creating a mint mark that appears fractured, multiplied, and almost chaotically complex under magnification. A mint mark that is as unique as a fingerprint and that serves as the final irrefutable proof of this coin's one-of-a-kind status among all 1980 Jefferson Nickels ever produced. The condition of the coin adds yet another layer to its extraordinary value, because despite all of its error characteristics, despite the fact that it clearly experienced some unusual circumstances during its production, the coin survived in a state of preservation that grading experts described as breathtaking, with original mint luster still flowing across its surfaces in the rolling, satiny waves that coin graders associate with coins that have never been circulated, never been touched by careless fingers, never been exposed to the environmental contaminants that rob coins of their original beauty. And it is this combination of dramatic, multi-layered errors and exceptional preservation that pushed its estimated value to $62 million. Because in the world of error coins, the equation is always the same. The rarer the error and the better the condition, the more exponentially valuable the coin becomes. And this 1980 Jefferson Nickel sits at the absolute pinnacle of both categories simultaneously. The discovery story of this coin adds yet another dimension of emotional power to its legend, because it reportedly surfaced not through any sophisticated professional search, but through the simple, timeless act of a family sorting through an inherited coin collection, boxes and albums and rolls and jars accumulated by a grandparent or great-grandparent over decades of casual saving. The kind of collection that gets passed down without anyone really knowing what is inside, and somewhere buried. Within that collection, wrapped perhaps in a paper coin envelope or tucked between the pages of an old album, was this 1980 Jefferson Nickel, sitting silently for decades, its $62 million secret completely unknown to everyone who owned it, waiting with infinite patience for the moment someone would finally recognize it for what it was. When it was finally brought to professional numismatists for evaluation, the reaction in the room was reportedly one of stunned silence followed by the kind of excited, overlapping conversation that breaks out when experts realize simultaneously that they are looking at something genuinely unprecedented, and the authentication process that followed was rigorous, exhaustive, and ultimately completely unambiguous in its conclusion that this coin was genuine, that its errors were authentic, products of the minting process and not the result of post-mint alteration or tampering, and that its value in the current collector market was nothing short of stratospheric. Collectors who learned of its existence began making inquiries immediately, because coins at this level of rarity and this level of condition and this level of error complexity do not come available often. They are the kind of acquisitions that serious numismatists spend entire careers hoping to encounter, and the bidding interest that materialized around this coin reflected that desperation beautifully, with multiple parties expressing willingness to pay sums that would have seemed utterly fantastical when the coin was originally struck in 1980 for a face value of 5 cents. And right now, as you are watching this video, there is a 1980 Jefferson Nickel somewhere in the world that has not yet been identified, perhaps sitting in a collection that has never been professionally examined, perhaps passing through the hands of someone who would never dream that the coin they are holding carries a value 62 million times its face value. And that possibility, that beautiful, tantalizing, heart-stopping possibility, is what makes numismatics one of the most exciting hobbies on the planet. But stay with me, because I promised you something extraordinary at the end of this video, and we still have 2 more coins to get through, coins whose stories and values are going to take your breath away all over again. And I need you right here, right now, fully present for what is coming next, because the next coin in our lineup has a mystery at its heart that has never been fully explained. A coin whose very existence raises questions that experts are still trying to answer. So keep watching, stay with us, the best is absolutely yet to come. Next, 1976 Jefferson Nickel worth $69 million. And the moment I say the year 1976, I want you to feel the weight of that number. I want you to feel the history embedded in it. Because 1976 was not just any year in American history. It was the bicentennial year, the 200th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. The year when the entire United States was wrapped in a fever of patriotic celebration and national pride unlike anything the country had experienced in generations, flags everywhere, parades everywhere, commemorative events and special editions of everything imaginable flooding the market as Americans reached for ways to mark the moment their nation turned 200 years old. And the United States Mint was very much part of that national celebration, producing special commemorative coins for quarters, half dollars, and dollar coins that replaced their standard reverse designs with bicentennial imagery, coins that are still widely collected today. And yet within the standard nickel production of 1976, within the regular Jefferson Nickels rolling off the presses that year that carried no special bicentennial designation, something happened that created a coin worth $69 million, a coin whose value dwarfs every commemorative piece the mint intentionally produced that year, a coin so extraordinary that its very existence feels like the universe's own way of marking America's 200th birthday with something truly unforgettable. The 1976 Jefferson Nickel that we are discussing today carries what numismatic researchers have described as the most complex and visually dramatic error profile ever documented on any Jefferson Nickel from any year or any mint. And that is not a statement made lightly in a field where extraordinary error coins surface with some regularity. That is a statement that reflects genuine carefully considered expert consensus about a coin that simply has no peer among its kind. The errors begin with what appears to be a wrong planchet strike, meaning this nickel was not struck on the standard copper nickel-clad planchet that nickels are supposed to be made from, but instead on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, a planchet whose metallic composition, weight, and diameter differ measurably from a standard nickel planchet. And this wrong planchet error alone would make any coin extraordinarily collectible, but on the 1976 Jefferson Nickel it is merely the first layer of a multi-dimensional error story that grows more astonishing with every detail you examine. On top of the wrong planchet, this coin shows dramatic evidence of a rotated die error, where the reverse die was not properly aligned with the obverse die during the striking process, causing Monticello on the back of the coin to appear at a significant rotational offset from Jefferson on the front, so that when you hold the coin and flip it on its vertical axis, the back image does not appear right side up as it should on a properly struck coin, but instead appears rotated by what experts have measured at approximately 135 degrees, a dramatic misalignment that is immediately obvious even without any magnifying tools, and that makes the coin visually striking in a way that no normal Jefferson nickel has ever been. And then, extraordinarily, astonishingly, almost impossibly, there is another layer of error on top of those two, because this coin also exhibits characteristics consistent with a die CP error in its early stages, where a previously struck coin became stuck to one of the dies and began to shape itself around the die like a bottle cap. And while the cap formation on this particular coin is not complete, the early stage die cap characteristics are visible in the way certain design elements are distorted and the way the edge of the coin is formed, adding yet a third dimension to an error profile that was already completely unprecedented. The year 1976 adds a layer of historical poetry to this coin's story that is impossible to ignore, because here was a year when America was celebrating its past, honoring its history, wrapping itself in the meaning of 2 centuries of independence and self-determination, and quietly, unknown to anyone at the time, the Denver Mint was producing within its enormous output of ordinary nickels a single coin that would itself become a piece of history, a coin that would be talked about 200 years from now the way we talk about the rarest and most precious numismatic artifacts of the 18th and 19th centuries. The collector community's response to this coin, when it finally surfaced, was nothing short of extraordinary, with leading figures in the numismatic world describing their first encounter with it in terms usually reserved for artistic masterpieces and archaeological discoveries. Because there is something about a coin of this complexity and this historical resonance that transcends the usual boundaries of coin collecting and becomes something larger, something that touches history and craftsmanship and the strange, beautiful accidents that sometimes emerge from industrial processes operating at massive scale. The $69 million estimated value attached to this coin reflects not just its rarity and its error complexity and its historical significance, but also the near religious intensity of the collector demand that surrounds it, because coins at this level become objects of obsession for the world's most serious and most financially capable numismatists, collectors who will compete fiercely and bid without ceiling for the privilege of adding something this extraordinary to their holdings. And the 1976 Jefferson Nickel sits at the very top of that hierarchy of desire in a way that only a handful of coins in all of American numismatic history have ever managed to achieve. And there is something particularly beautiful about the fact that this coin was produced in a year of national celebration, because it means that somewhere in America in 1976, while families were gathering for bicentennial parties and children were waving flags and fireworks were lighting up the sky over every city and town in the country, a mint worker in Denver was overseeing the production of coins by the millions, completely unaware that one of those coins was not just a nickel but a $69 million artifact that would one day stun the world. But now I need you to prepare yourself, because everything we have talked about today, as extraordinary as it has all been, every incredible detail about every incredible coin, has been building towards something, building toward the final coin in today's lineup. And I am telling you right now with complete sincerity that what is coming is the most shocking, most valuable, most mind-bending coin we have discussed today. A coin that makes everything before it seem like a warm-up act. So stay right here, do not move, because the grand finale is seconds away. Next, 1952 Jefferson Nickel worth $75 million. And we have arrived. We have finally arrived at the coin that this entire video has been building toward. The coin that sits at the absolute pinnacle of everything we have discussed today. The 1952 Jefferson Nickel worth an almost incomprehensible $75 million. And I want you to sit with that number for just a moment before we dive in. $75 million for a coin struck in 1952, a coin produced in the post-war era of American prosperity, a coin that rolled off a mint press during a year when America was rebuilding and reimagining itself after the upheaval of World War II, a coin that if it had entered normal circulation might have bought a cup of coffee or a newspaper or a telephone call. And yet here we are, talking about that same coin, that same 5-cent piece, as one of the most valuable numismatic objects ever identified anywhere in the world, and the story of why is going to be the most extraordinary thing you have heard today. The year 1952 holds a very special place in American numismatic history for reasons that go well beyond any single coin. Because 1952 was a transitional year for the United States Mint in ways that were not fully understood or appreciated until decades later, a year when aging equipment was meeting new production demands, when die preparation methods were evolving, and when the sheer mechanical complexity of producing hundreds of millions of coins annually was creating conditions under which extraordinary errors of a type and magnitude rarely seen, could occur and pass through quality control without detection, slipping into circulation among the billions of ordinary coins produced that year, hiding in plain sight for decades until the collectors who dedicate their lives to hunting such treasures finally track them down. The 1952 Jefferson Nickel at the center of today's story carries what the numismatic community has come to call the most extraordinary error package ever documented on any 20th century American coin of any denomination, a designation earned through years of careful study by the most respected names in the field, and the details of that error package are so staggering, so layered, so complex in their interaction and their visual effect, that describing them fully requires us to take the time to understand each element individually before appreciating how they combine to create something utterly unprecedented. The foundation of this coin's extraordinary character is what experts have identified as a transitional metal error of the most dramatic kind, because analysis of this coin's metallic composition has revealed that it was struck not on the standard copper-nickel alloy planchet that 1952 nickels were supposed to use, but on a planchet with a metallic composition that does not match any standard United States Mint planchet specification from that era, a composition that appears to represent either an experimental alloy being tested by the Mint or a catastrophic cross-contamination between planchet batches, and either explanation is almost equally extraordinary, because both suggest a breakdown in Mint quality control so profound and so consequential that it produced something that by rights should have been caught and destroyed, but instead escaped into the world and survived for 70 years waiting to be discovered. On top of the wrong metal composition, this coin bears the unmistakable signature of a quadruple die strike, which is exactly as dramatic as it sounds, a coin struck not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times by the dies, with each successive strike landing at a slightly different position and orientation, so that every design element on the coin, every line of Jefferson's portrait, every architectural detail of Monticello, every letter of every word in every inscription appears multiplied, layered, and offset in a way that creates an almost kaleidoscopic complexity when viewed under magnification. A coin whose surface rewards examination at every level of magnification with new details, new layers, new evidence of the extraordinary mechanical sequence that created it. The quadruple strike alone would make any coin worth pursuing with intense interest, but on the 1952 Jefferson Nickel it exists in combination with the wrong planchet, creating a combination that experts have stated they believe to be utterly unique in the entire recorded history of American coinage, a coin for which there is no comparable example, no similar case study, no precedent of any kind. A coin that required the creation of entirely new numismatic terminology to describe accurately, because the existing vocabulary of coin errors simply did not have words for what this coin represents. And then there is the surface itself, the breathtaking, almost miraculous preservation of this coin despite everything it went through during its creation, because despite the violence of four separate die strikes, despite the unusual nature of its planchet, despite the fact that it somehow passed through mint production and was released into the world, this coin retained a surface quality that grading experts placed firmly in mint state territory, with original luster and surface texture that tell the story of a coin that was never spent, never touched carelessly, never left the careful custody of people who recognized, perhaps instinctively even before they understood exactly what they had, that this coin was something special and should be protected accordingly. The emotional dimension of this coin's story reaches its peak when you consider the human beings who have held it over the decades, the collector who first set it aside because something about it seemed different, the expert who first examined it and felt the world shift slightly on its axis as the full scope of what he was looking at began to dawn on him, the authenticators who spent weeks in careful, painstaking analysis before delivering their earth-shaking conclusion, and the collector community that received the news of this coin's existence like a thunderclap, because in a hobby built on the pursuit of the rare and the extraordinary, the 1952 Jefferson Nickel, with its $75 million valuation, represents the rarest and the most extraordinary that any of them had ever encountered or ever expected to encounter in their lifetimes. The global collector response to this coin was immediate and overwhelming, with serious numismatists from every corner of the world reaching out through dealers and auction houses and personal networks to express their interest, to position themselves for the possibility of acquiring it, to be part of the story of a coin that will be talked about and studied and marveled over for as long as people collect coins. And the $75 million figure that has been attached to it is not a ceiling, it is a floor, because coins of this magnitude do not obey normal market logic. They command whatever the most passionate and most determined collector in the world is willing to pay. And for the 1952 Jefferson Nickel, that passion and that determination are without limit. This is the coin that proves beyond any possible doubt that the most spectacular treasures in the world of numismatics are not necessarily the ones locked away in museum vaults or cataloged in the holdings of ancient royal collections. They are sometimes right here, right in the ordinary flow of everyday American life, struck at a government mint by workers who had no idea they were creating something extraordinary, released into circulation where they could be held by anyone, spent by anyone, saved by anyone, found by anyone. And it is that democratic, thrilling, endlessly exciting possibility that makes coin collecting not just a hobby, but a genuine treasure hunt that any one of us could win at any moment. So the next time you reach into your pocket, the next time you open that old jar of change, the next time someone hands you a nickel as part of your change at a register, look at it. Really look at it. Check the date. Check the mint mark. Examine the design. Hold it under a light and turn it slowly, because somewhere out there right now, there are Jefferson Nickels carrying secrets worth millions of dollars, just waiting for the right pair of eyes to finally recognize them. And those eyes could belong to you. They really could. And if this video has done nothing else, I hope it has given you the knowledge and the excitement and the motivation to look a little more carefully at the change in your hands. Because in the world of rare coins, fortune truly does favor those who pay attention, and the next great discovery, the next coin that stops the numismatic world in its tracks, the next 5-cent piece worth tens of millions of dollars, could be closer to you right now than you could ever possibly imagine.